He will be protected from discrimination and held in the environment most suitable for his preferred magic type. Iode finds all of this exciting and thinks that even if he's not his direct disciple, it wouldn't matter. He's just happy to leave this nightmarish family and study magic in peace. He looks at his father, who notes that there's no need for reassurance and that it's entirely his choice. His mother says that this is a special opportunity his father has given him, so he should take it with some grace, as he has shown interest in magic ever since he was young. But he should not forget that he is her son and the one who will become patriarch. So even in the magical land of Aroth, he shouldn't forget this fact. Gillard screams at her to stop, and she says she's only encouraging him, as a mother should. She thinks that bastard of a woman, Annasilla, will be jumping with joy when Iode leaves. But she doesn't have any other choice, as Iode is too naive and weak-willed to be called a descendant of this bloodline. He's much better off making connections with various mages, growing in power, and making friends who will support him. She reminds him that he's a legitimate son of Lionheart, and he looks down while agreeing with her, the only thing he can do. The day after the banquet, Roberian left with Iode for Aroth, and the other children of the branch families also returned to their own places. Eugene and Jihard ended up living in the now empty annex, and today Eugene will be learning mana for the first time after reincarnating. Mana development has two categories: breathing and body training. Breathing is where one collects mana from the atmosphere with their breathing, and body training is when one moves their body to collect mana. Neither is easy, but breathing is superior. In his past life, he used body training to practice mana, and later changed to breathing, as Senya and Vermouth highly advised. The Lionheart mana training technique is breathing. He arrives where Kion is waiting for him, who says that they should get going and start. Eugene thinks that mana veins are the areas where mana is most concentrated. Deep in the forest of the main family, there's a mana vein that is only available to those of direct lineage. It also wasn't made naturally. Instead, Vermouth created it himself over 300 years ago. He thinks that Vermouth is the best person to create a mana vein all by himself, and Kion asks if he's nervous about this. But it's quite the opposite, as he's excited. Kion notes that it won't be an easy task, and he will help him. But he may struggle as it's his first time, and he's not that young yet to be able to feel the mana at a higher potency. He says that Seal and Kyan started their training when they were just 6, and it only took them 4 days to feel mana, and Iode around a week. Branch families usually start training with mana at his age, but apparently it can take up to a month to even feel mana. However, it won't take him that long, as he's here to help, and they also have a mana vein. Eugene asks how long it will take, and Kion guesses around 10 days. Eugene scratches his head and laughs, noting it won't even take him a mere 10 minutes. Finally, they arrive at a lonely cabin. They enter, and Kion urges him to follow. They go down a flight of stairs and arrive at a basement that's quite large. Kion tells him to sit in the middle, and he does so. He explains that their mana training technique was passed down by the Great Vermouth, and there's a rule that branch families can't use or inherit the technique. So everyone in the branch families is taught the red flame method, which lacks the utility of the original. Kion shows him the original technique. The white flame method. Eugene thinks that he hasn't heard that name, but he recognizes that unique form quite vividly. Vermouth had a high-density layer of mana that surrounded his body, and it materialized in the form of pure white flames. It almost looked like the mane of a lion, and the past him was never able to really surpass those flames. Kion notes that since it will take a while for him to sense mana, they should concentrate on his breathing right now. Eugene notes that he can actually feel it already, but Kion says that it's his imagination, and uses a technique to teach him that it's just his senses playing tricks. He puts a ball of mana around him, and Eugene immediately points to where it is, again and again, until I asked how long they would be doing this for. Kion is extremely surprised, and thinks that this child is evolving at an extremely fast pace. He sighs and crouches down to his level, noting that if he already feels mana, they can start. From this moment on, he shouldn't say a word, and concentrate on everything that's going on inside of his body. They begin, and Kion urges him to imagine that he's breathing in the same rhythmic flow that mana has. Once he does that, he should imagine that he's guiding it along the proper path, to his heart. Kion lets go of him and slowly backs away, noting that he's doing very well. But this doesn't even cut it, as Eugene is already capable of fine-tuning his mana at such a young age. and the only thing he needs to do now is allow the mana within his body to flow fully. While he meditates, Eugene thinks that this growth is just plain crazy. Sensing and breathing mana wouldn't have been hard for him to do in his past life. But this body is like it was made for absorbing mana. He can feel how the amount of mana within his body grows with every breath he takes. But due to his young age, there's a limit to how much he can take, so he should stop for now. He makes a core in his chest, and Keon notes that the size of his core is amazing, as normal people start with a smaller core and train in mana afterwards to grow its size. He says that he's a monster, and Eugene asks if he meant that as a compliment. Keon says that they should head back now, and while they do so, he says that the biggest difference between the white flame and red flame methods is that the red flame can't spit out their cores. With the white flame method, his core will split naturally once he passes a threshold. He will be much more efficient with his use of mana, and the cores will resonate with one another to increase their power by quite a lot. They call those cores stars, and Vermouth the Great had an extremely high number of 10 cores. Gillard and himself are at 6 stars. Seal Cian and Iode are all 1 stars. But the twins will surely become 2 stars by the next year. Eugene asks how long it will take him, and Keon notes that if he doesn't slacken his training, he will grow much, much faster. He says that he will do his utmost and thinks that this is insane. Not only did he reincarnate into an extremely good body, but he's also learning Vermouth's training technique, so there's no way he will be lazy. He isn't sure he will be able to reach 10 stars, but he will figure out the details of the method later, as he can adjust it as he wishes. They arrive back, and Keon notes that he will be the one to tell Gillard what happened, so he should get some rest. Eugene says that he will do just that, but he lies, saying that there's something he really wants to do first. Nina is surprised that he has already returned, and he orders her to fetch Vinad for him. He unsheaths the sword, and wonders if this will really work. He imbues mana into the sword, and it starts a tornado, which almost sends Nina flying. Inside of it, someone talks with Eugene but calls him by his original name, Hamel. Eugene recognizes this voice, and it's none other than the king of the wind spirits, Tempest. He instantly recognizes him as Hamel, and Eugene asks how he knows. Tempest notes that he couldn't possibly forget one of Vermouth's companion's souls. Even if time passes and his body changes, his soul will never truly change. It's also been quite a while since he last received Winad's call. He came here because he was curious, as he thought one of Vermouth's descendants used it. Eugene gets straight to the point and asks why Vermouth didn't slay the Demon King. He demands Tempest speak, as he was still with them even after his death. Tempest says that he can't hope to decipher Vermouth's mind, but in the battle against the Demon King of Incarceration, Vermouth unexpectedly sheathed his sword. Eugene is quite shocked at this fact, and Tempest says the battle was the fiercest of all, but the ending was lacking in that regard. The only ones left standing were the Demon King of Incarceration and Vermouth. That's when he chose to sheathe his sword. He did not slay the Demon King, and he left. Eugene sits in silence for a second, but he just can't believe that. He notes that everyone here says that Vermouth made a promise to the Demon King, so what was it? Tempest notes that the only ones who know about said promise are the ones who were present when it occurred. From the moment Vermouth sheathed his sword, he became unable to interfere in any way. Eugene screams that he said everyone except the Demon King of Incarceration and Vermouth died. So is he telling him to get answers from a dead man? Tempest says that he does not have time to answer, as he forcefully opened a gate to talk with him, which he now has to close. They will meet at a later date, when he has become strong enough. While screaming, Eugene falls down, and the tornado dissipates. Nina sees him passed out and is extremely horrified. Later he wakes up in bed, but a headache instantly rises. He thinks that this feeling means his mana was depleted, which is quite natural considering he had so little in the first place. Spirits remember creations by their souls, and he recognized him as Hamel. There's always been the thought in the back of his head that he's not really Hamel, but just a creation from his memories. But now he's certain of who he is. Nina comes inside and notices that he woke up. Eugene asks how long he was asleep for, and she notes that it was about half a day. She also says that the Patriarch and Keon are in the annex as they speak, so she will bring them here. They arrive. and Gillard says that he heard everything from Nina about how a great wind blew around him the moment he held Winad. Did he perhaps summon a wind spirit? Eugene looks at him and thinks that he can't lie, considering the size of the storm that a lot of people saw. So he will have to tell the half-truth.